morning, boys and girls. I guess it's Friday today. I'm going to read from the next section of where the red fern grows. But Petey, who's getting restless on my lap, wanted to say hi to everybody. He got a boom because he's such a good boy this morning. Yeah, okay. Just wanted to remind you that you can always call me, Class Dojo me, get a hold of me however you want to. Send me some videos on your Class Dojo, on your portfolios. I've gotten so many cool things from everybody. So keep them coming. I love to hear from it. And I will be posting and putting stuff on your portfolios too as the days go. Just some reminders of things that you can do. Try playing some Prodigy today. Maybe read a little bit more. Try your Type C. There's some fun, cool apps, Card Games IO. Do some fun stuff like that on your iPad today and have fun with it. All right, I would love to say, where did we leave off, class? What's going on in our story? But I can't do that either. So I just want to remind you that I think where we left off, Billy had fainted because he was so scared that his dogs, who Mr. Benson came running and saying they looked like ghosts, I think he was afraid that his dogs were not alive anymore. So I'm going to set Petey down, and I'm going to try to find my spot and my page number where I left off. There you go, Pete. Here's your bone. You're going to be my live audience today. Pete's going to be my live audience today. All right. Let's see. Here, and I've got my glasses, and we will begin where the red fern grows. Regaining consciousness, I opened my eyes and could dimly see the blurry images of the men around me. A hand was shaking me, and I could hear my pa's voice, but I couldn't understand his words. Little by little, the blackness faded away, and my throat was dry and terribly thirsty. I asked for some water. Mr. Benson came over. He said, "Son, I'm sorry. Truly I am. I didn't mean it that way. Your dog is alive. I guess I was just excited is all. I'm sorry." I heard a deep voice say, "That's a naughty thing to do. Come running in here saying them dogs is frozen solid." Mr. Benson said, "I didn't mean to sound that way. I said I'm sorry. What more do you want me to do?" The deep voice growled again. "I still think it was not a very nice thing for a man to do." Mr. Kyle took over. "Now, let's not have any more of this," he said. "We have work to do. We've been standing here acting like a bunch of school kids, and all this time that old man been lying there suffering. A couple of you men cut 2 poles and make a stretcher to carry him on." While the men was getting the poles, Pa heated the coonskins again and rewrapped Grandpa's foot. With belts and long leather laces from their boots, the hunters made a stretcher. Very gently, they put Grandpa on it, and again Mr. Kyle took command. "Part of us will start for camp with him," he said. "The others on. Go on, find them dogs." "Here, take this," Pa said. "I'll go with you." "Looking at me," Mr. Kyle said. "Come on, son, then. I want to see your hounds." Mr. Benson led the way. "As soon as we get out of this cane," he said, "we may be able to hear 'em. They have that coon tree and that big black gum tree. They're going to see a sight. Now, I mean a sight. They walked a ring round that tree, clear through the ice and snow. You can barely see the ground from there." "Wonder why they did that?" someone asked. "Don't know," Mr. Benson replied, "unless they ran in that circle to keep from freezing to death, or to keep the coon in the tree." I figured I knew why my dogs was covered with ice. That coon had probably crossed that river several times. Old Dan and little Ann would have followed him. They'd have come out of the river with them coats dripping wet, and freezing blast of that blizzard had done the rest. Nearing the tree, we stopped and stared. "Did you ever see a sight?" Mr. Benson asked. "When I first saw them, I thought they were white wolves." My dogs hadn't seen us when we came up, and they was trotting round and round and round that tree. Just as Mr. Benson had said, we could see the path they'd worn down through the ice and snow till the bare black earth was visible. Like ghostly white shadows around and around they kept trotting. In a low voice, someone said, "They know that if they stop, they's going to freeze to death." "It's unbelievable," Mr. Kyle said. "Come on, we must do something quick." With a choking sob, I ran for my dogs, and on hearing our approach, they sat down and started bawling treat again. I noticed their voices didn't have that solid ring no more. Their ice-covered tails made a rattling sound as they switched this way and that on the icy ground. A large fire was built, and standing my dogs close to that warm heap, the gentle hands of the hunters started to work. With handkerchiefs and scarves heated steaming hot, little by little the ice was thawed from their bodies. If they'd ever laid down, someone said, they'd have froze to death. They knew it, another said. That's why they kept running in that circle. "What I can't understand is why they stayed with that tree," Mr. Benson said. "I've seen hounds stay with the tree for a while, but not in a northern blizzard." "Men," said Mr. Kyle, "people have been trying to understand dogs ever since the beginning of time. One never knows what they're going to do, and you can read every day where a dog saved the life of a drowning child or laid down his life for his master. Some people call it loyalty, but I don't. I may be wrong, but I call it love, the deepest kind of love." After them words was spoken, a thoughtful silence settled over the men. The mood was broken by the deep growling voice I had heard back in the washout. "It's a shame that people all over the world can't have that kind of love in their hearts," he said. "There'd be no wars, slaughter, or murder, no greed or selfishness. It'd be the kind of world that we all want to have, a wonderful world." After all the ice was thawed for my dogs and them coats was dried out, I could see they was all right. I was happy again, and I felt good all over. One of the hunters said, "Do you think them hounds are thawed out enough to fight a coon?" "Sure," I said. "Just let 'em run out of that tree." At the crack of the gun, the coon ran far out onto that big limb and stopped, and again the hunter sprinkled him with birdshot. This time he jumped, hitting the ground. He crouched down low. Old Dan made a lunge. Just as he reached him, that coon sprang straight up and came back down on top of old Dan's head. Holding on with his claws, the coon sank his teeth in one long, tender ear, and old Dan was furious. He started turning in a circle, bawling with pain. Little Ann was trying hard to get a hold of that coon, but she couldn't. Because of his fast circling, old Dan's feet flew out from under him, and he fell. This gave little Ann a chance. Darting in, her jaws closed on the back of that coon's neck. I knew the fight was over. Arriving back at camp, I saw all the tents had been taken down but ours. A hunter said everyone was in a hurry to get out before that blizzard set in. Papa told me to take my dogs into the tent that Grandpa wanted to see him. I saw tears in my grandpa's eyes as he talked to them, and his ankles wrapped in bandages. His foot and toes was swollen to twice their normal size, and they had turned a greenish-yellow color. Placing my hand on his foot, I could see the heat from the feverish fever that he had going on. Dr. Latham came over. "You ready to go now?" he asked. Snorting and growling, Grandpa said, "I told you I was going anywhere till I see that gold cup handed to my son." Turning to face the crowd, Dr. Latham said, "Men, let's get this over. I want to get this man to town. That's one of the meanest sprains I ever done seen. It should be in a cast, but I don't have no plaster Paris with me." The hunter who had come by our tent collecting the jackpot money came up to me. Handed me the box, he said, "Here you are, son. There's over $300 in that box, and it's all yours." Turning to the crowd, "Fellas," he said, "fellas, I can always say this. On this hunt, I've seen two of the finest little coon hounds I ever hoped to see." There was a roar of approval from the crowd. Looking down, I saw the box was almost full of money. I was shaking all over, and I tried to say thanks, but it was only a whisper. Turning, I handed the box to my pa, and as his rough old hands closed around it, I saw a strange look come over his face. He turned and looked at my dogs. Some of the men started shouting, "Here it is!" The crowd parted, and the judge walked through. I saw the gleaming metal of that gold cup in his hands, and after a short speech, he handed it to me, saying, "Son, this makes me so proud. It's a great honor to present you with this championship cup." The crowd exploded, and the hunter's shouts was deafening. I don't know from where the two silly old tears came from, but they just kind of squeezed their way out of my eyes. I felt them as they rolled down my cheeks, and one dropped on the smooth surface of that cup and splattered. I wiped it away with my sleeve. Turning to my dogs, I knelt down and showed the cup to them, and little Ann licked it. Old Dan sniffed one time and then kind of turned around and walked away. The judge said, "Son, there's a place on the cup to engrave the names of your dogs. I can take it to Oklahoma City and have it done, or you can have it done yourself. The engraving charge has already been paid by the association." Looking at the cup, it seemed that far down in that gleaming shadows I could see two wide blue eyes glued to a window pane. I knew that my little sister was a-watching the road and just a-waiting for my return. Looking back at the judge, I said, "If you don't mind, sir, I'll take it with me. My grandpa can send it in." Laughing, he said, "It's all right." Handing me a slip of paper, he said, "This is the address where you can send it." Grandpa said, "Now that that's settled, I'm ready to go home to town." Turning to Papa, he said, "You'll have to bring the buggy in. I wish you'd look after my stock. I know Grandma want to go in with us, and there'll be no one there to feed them cattles. Tell Bill Lowry to come up and take care of the stone. He'll find the keys in the usual place." "With everything taken care of," Pa said. "Don't worry about a thing, and I don't intend to stop until we get back, 'cause it looks like we're in for some more bad weather." I went over and kissed Grandpa goodbye, and he pinched my cheek, and he whispered, "We're going to teach them city slickers they can't come up here and beat our dogs." I smiled at him. Grandpa was carried out and made comfortable in the back seat of Dr. Latham's car, and I stood and watched as it wheezed and bounced its way out of sight. Well, I'm harnessing the team, Pa said. You take the tent down and pack up our gear, son. On the back seat of the buggy, I made a bed out of bedclothes, and down on the floorboards, I fixed a nice place for my dogs. Out through the night, creaking wheels, our buggy moved on. Several times I woke up. My pa had wrapped a tarp around himself, and reaching down, I could feel my dogs. They was warm and cozy. Early the next morning, we stopped for breakfast. While Pa tended to the team, I turned my dogs loose and let them stretch. We made good time last night, Pa said. If everything goes right, we'll be home before dark. Reaching Grandpa's store in the middle of the afternoon, Pa said, I'll put the team in the barn and feed the stock while you unload the buggy. Coming back from the barn, he said, in the morning, I'll go over and tell Bill Lowry to come up and open the store. Looking round, he said, it snowed more here than it did where we was hunting. Feeling big and important, I said, I don't like the looks of this weather, Pa. We'd better be scooting on home. Papa laughed. Sure you're not in a hurry to get home to show off that gold cup, he asked. A smile was my only answer. 200 yards this side of our home, the road made a turn about a low foothill, shutting our house off from view. Pa said you're going to see a scramble as soon as we round that bend, you know, son. It was more of a stampede than a scramble. The little one came out first and all but tore the screen door off its hinges. The older girls passed her just beyond the gate. In her hurry, she slipped and fell down into the snow, and she started crying. The older girl ran up and asking for the cup. Holding it high over my head, I said, now, wait a minute. I got another one for you, too. He held the small silver cup out to them. While they was fighting over it, I ran to the little one, and picking her up, I brushed the snow off from her long braided hair and her tear-stained face. I told her there was no use to cry. I'd brought the cold cup back to her. No one else was going to get it. Reaching for the cup, she wrapped her small arms around it. Squeezing it tight, she ran for the house to show it to Mama. Mama came out on that porch, and she was just as excited as the girls were. She held out her arms, and I ran to her, and she hugged and kissed me. It's good to have you home again, she said. Look what I have, Mama, the little one cried, and it's all mine. She held the golden cup out in her two small hands, and as Mama took that beautiful cup, she looked at me. She started to say something, but was interrupted by the cries from the other girls. We have one too, Mama, they cried, and it's just as pretty as that one. It ain't neither, the little one piped in a defiant voice. It's not even as big as mine. 2 cups, Mama exclaimed. Did you win 2, Billy? Yes, ma'am, I said. Little Ann won that one all by herself. The odd expression on my Mama's face was wonderful to see, and holding a cup in each hand, she held them out in front of her. 2, she said. A golden one and a silver one? Who would have thought anything so wonderful could have happened to us? I'm so proud of you, Billy. I'm so proud. Handing the cups back to them girls, she walked over to Pa, and after kissing him hello, she said, I just can't believe everything that's happened. I'm so glad you went along. Papa almost shouted. Did you enjoy yourself, she asked. Papa almost shouted, enjoy myself? Why, I never had such a time in my life. His voice trailed off to a low calm. That is excepting for one thing. I want you to know Grandpa had an accident. I know, Mama said. One of Tom Logan's boys was at the store when they arrived, and he came by and told us all about it. The doctor said it wasn't as bad as it looked, and he was pretty sure Grandpa would be home in a few days. I was happy to hear the news, and could tell by the pleased look on my Pa's face he was glad to hear it, too. On entering the house, Pa said, oh, I almost forgot. He handed that box of money to my Mama. What's this, she asked. Oh, just a little gift from old Dan and little Ann, Pa said. Mama opened the box, and I saw the color drain from her face. Her hands started trembling, and turning her back to us, she walked over and sat down on the mantel. A peaceful silence settled over the room, and I could hear the clock ticking away, and the fire in the fireplace crackled and popped. Turning from the mantel, Mama looked straight at us. Her lips were highly pressed together to keep them from quivering. Walking slowly to Papa, she buried her face in his chest, and I heard her say, oh, my goodness, my prayers have been answered. There was a celebration at home that night. To me, it was like a second Christmas. Mama opened a jar of huckleberries and made a large cobbler, and Pa went to the smokehouse and came back with a huckleberry-cured ham. We sat down to a feast of the ham and huge plates of fried potatoes and ham gravy, hot cornbread, fresh butter, and wild bee honey. During the course of that meal, the entire story of the championship hunt was told, some by Pa, but mostly by me. Just when everything was so perfect and peaceful, an argument sprang up between the 2 oldest girls. It seemed that each wanted to claim that silver cup, and just when they were on the verge of sawing it in two, so much would have been allowed to share, Papa settled the squabble by giving the oldest one a silver dollar. Once again, peace and harmony was restored. That night I was prepping for bed, and a light flashed by my window. Puzzled, I tiptoed over and peeked through the window pane. It was my Mama, carrying my lantern and 2 large plates heaping with food. She was heading for my doghouse. Setting the light down on the ground in front of it, she called to my dogs, and while I was eating, Mama did something I couldn't understand. She knelt down on her knees, and she prayed. After they'd eaten their food, Mama started petting them, and I could hear her voice but couldn't make out her words. But whatever she was saying must have pleased them, because little Ann wiggled and twisted, and even old Dan's wig wagged his tail, which was very unusual. Pa came out, and I saw him put his arm around Mama, and side by side they stood for several minutes looking at my dogs. When they turned to enter the house, I saw Mama dab at her eyes with her apron, and lying in bed staring in the darkness, I tried hard to figure out the strange actions of my Ma and Pa. Why had Mama knelt in prayer in front of my dogs? Why was she crying? I was running all the whys around in my mind when I heard them talking. I know, Pa said, but I think there's a way. I'm going to have a talk with Grandpa, and I don't think that old foot of his is ever going to be the same again. He's going to need help around that store. I knew they was talking about me, but I couldn't understand what they meant. Then I thought, why, that's it. They want me to help Grandpa? That'd be all right with me. I could still hunt every night. Feeling smart for figuring out their conversation, I turned over and instantly fell asleep. The next chapter is chapter 19. And yes, I think I'm going to have to enter the Kleenex box. It's going to turn sad here, boys and girls. We've talked about it. And you know, that's what a great story does. It helps the reader range through their emotions from sad to happy to angry to pleased. And this one's going to be a sad one. So, yes, I'm going to be embarrassed. I will be crying on YouTube for you guys. Just so you know, it's coming. All right. You guys have a great weekend, and I'll pop back on Monday with the next reading. Okay, bye.